afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the closing press conference of the 7th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas and the Caribbean. We welcome all of the delegates joining from in the Americas and across the Caribbean. Special welcome as well to my colleague representatives in the media who are joining us for this event. And in this half an hour segment, the ministerial meetings, conclusions, and agreements will be presented. We're so happy to be rejoined actually, by Minister of Local Government and Community Development, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie. Welcome, Minister. And we also have joining us in this segment, Mrs. Mami Mizaturi, who is a special representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction with the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR. Also joining us on the Hopin platform, which is the electronic medium we've been using, we have Mrs. Elizabeth Riley, who is the Executive Director of Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA. And for the next half an hour, I will happily guide the proceedings. My name is Emily Shields. So we're going to get straight to it now, and we'll ask Minister Desmond McKenzie to come and present to us the ministerial meetings, conclusions, and agreements that have been reached over the last 4 days.
What is that?
Well, the minister will take us where we need to go with this. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Emily. Good afternoon to colleagues who joining us for this final press briefing. Just to say that the outcomes of the various sessions will be presented formally in the closing ceremony of the conference in a short while. But I just like to make 2 brief comments on the participation of the region in the 2 critical sessions that took place to the leading up of today's closing, where the Caribbean, especially yesterday during the high-level ministerial roundtable meeting, contributed significantly to the final draft document that will be ratified by the closing session. The Caribbean, I want to commend the Caribbean on its participation and the level of contribution that was made by the various countries yesterday. The last 2 days have been very, very productive. And I believe that the outcome of this 7th Regional Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, the evidence of that will be seen when we all get back to our respective places and then start to implement many of the decisions that was finalized. I will save my comments, my substantive comments, for the closing ceremony, but just to say that I believe we have had 4 very successful days of activities here at the Jamaica Conference Center in Kingston, and those are my opening comments.
Thank you, Minister. And I do look forward to the closing session for the conclusions of what you say have been some great days within the context of us watching what is going on as well in Glasgow and the code red that the world is facing at the moment. I'm sure we've reached some good conclusions at this session. I shall throw to Mrs. Mami Mizuturi, the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction at UNDRR, for her thoughts. Take us where it is you wish to take us, myself, those present here, and my media colleagues who are gathered on the platform.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shields. So indeed, as Minister Mackenzie, Honorable Minister Mackenzie already mentioned, these were 4 very productive days defying the challenges that we had in spite of the hybrid nature of this conference. And I don't want to spoil the excitement that has been saved for the closing ceremony. So I will also not mention too much in detail about what has been achieved, but indeed there has been a very powerful ministerial declaration adopted with the participation of 29 countries from the region, half of them from the Caribbean, and including the Prime Minister of Guyana. And we have had many participants in this regional platform, which was also a great celebration of how the government, but also all the stakeholders, are really aware of the critical importance of disaster risk reduction as we are recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic and as we are hit by the successive extreme weather events that are caused by climate emergency. And I think it was also a regional platform where the challenges of the SIDS, the challenges of the least developed countries, the countries most at risk was highlighted, because we know that disasters are now hitting everybody. The way that it impacts is not the same. And again, also within those countries at risk, there are vulnerable groups which are again impacted more by disasters, including women and girls, including people living with disability, the people who are living in poverty, and many more other groups of vulnerable people. But the importance of this regional platform and all the conferences around disaster risk reduction is that these people also take part in shaping the action plan, regional action plan for implementing the Sendai framework. Inclusivity was something that really came through very strong in improving the regional plan of action. And this was done through the participation of these different multi-stakeholder groups. And I believe this is the richness, the beauty of the platforms and the documents that come out from the process of implementing the Sendai framework. Now, I would end by saying that once again, I would like to thank the wonderful collaboration that has been made possible with the government of Jamaica under the great leadership of Minister Mackenzie, and also with our co-organizer, SEDIMA, led by Mrs. Elizabeth Riley. This is truly a collaboration of nations, collaboration with regional organizations, and by the UN system, because many UN system agencies also took part. And again, this is how we need to move forward our agenda of implementing the Sendai framework. So thank you very much. And at the end, I will be happy to take on questions. Back to you, Mrs. Shields.
Thank you so much. Can I just ask you to take this question, followed by a question I will pose to the minister just before we hear from the executive director of. So the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction, UNRR, has a large network of partners in disaster risk reduction outside of SEDEMA. Are there any plans at the moment from UNDRR to collaborate with any non-government organization at the national levels to strengthen disaster risk reduction in the Caribbean? I'd love to hear you on that, Mrs. Mizuturi.
Yes, thank you very much. So indeed, we have many partners that we work with and we will continue working with. For example, in terms of working with the civil society organizations and the civil society world, we have a global partner, which is a global network for disaster reduction, but they are not only global, they have regional branches. And for this regional platform, we worked very closely with GNDR to conduct a wide survey from a range of civil society organizations to ask them what they have been able to achieve, what they have as their challenges, and what kind of support they need from us. We also have a very strong collaboration with the science and technology and the academia. So in Caribbean, you have many important universities and academic hubs which do research on disasters, disaster risk and prevention. And these are definitely already very strong partners. But as disaster risk reduction policies need to be embedded on evidence and research, we will strengthen our collaboration with them. And of course, I should mention the youth, because at this regional platform, the youth put together a wonderful forum, and this was again under the leadership of the government of Jamaica. The youth's voice was not only heard, but was integrated into the action plan. And disaster risk reduction is about future generations. So we do really think that our partnership with the youth will become only stronger.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vittori. We'll come back to the questions to the minister in just a moment. Can we just ask the Executive Director of Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, Mrs. Elizabeth Riley, to take 5 to 7 minutes to let us know what you would like media partners engaged on the platform now to walk away from this conference with.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shields, and good afternoon to everyone. The Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Community Development of Jamaica. I bring greetings to you from Barbados, and also to Mrs. Mami Mizuturi, the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction with UNDRR, conference participants, members of the media. Good afternoon to everyone. I first want to congratulate the Government of Jamaica and the Honorable Minister on what has been a very successful hosting of this week's event. The COVID-19 pandemic, as you know, has created challenges with respect to our usual face-to-face format, and Jamaica has persevered despite these challenges and delivered a very successful virtual conference. I also want to say congratulations to our partners, UNDRR, and UNDRR continues to be a very value-added leader to the Caribbean region in the areas of disaster risk reduction. So my key messages are really first that this week's event has been nothing short of a landmark occasion. And this is the first time, as you know, that the conference has been hosted by Caribbean SIDS. And from our SEDEMA participating states, our 20 states, this is indeed a point of pride for us. And we absolutely hope this would not be the last occasion where one of our Caribbean SIDS is afforded this honor. For us, it represented an opportunity to showcase the work of the region, to showcase the special issues which face us as small island states, and very importantly, to talk about the progress that we're making in contributing to the results of the Sendai framework through our Regional Comprehensive Disaster Management Strategy, or CDM. And for me, there are three main messages coming out of the conference. I think the first one is about leadership. And in this regard, I really want to thank the Honorable Minister for the sterling leadership that he has provided to the process. And in hosting, it is very important for the host country to infuse its special flavor into the regional platform. Now, we have been particularly proud from the SEDIMA side of the very strong position taken by the government of Jamaica on the issue of building resilience by demonstrating leadership in the hosting, but also in the novel introduction of the youth components of the conference as well. I also want to recognize that we have had very sterling support from across the CARICOM space at the political level. And we know that the Honorable Prime Minister of Guyana has played a significant role, not just in participating in the conference, but also in his support for the resilience agenda. And this is critical because as we go forward from the regional platform, as we seek to move forward with the regional plan of action, the support and leadership of our political directorate is going to be absolutely critical. The second major message, I think, is related to the timeliness of the regional platform. And in this regard, I really have to speak to the very eventful last 2 years for the Caribbean region. We have seen very tangibly demonstrated the complexity of the hazards that we face in this region. We started with the first cases of COVID-19 in March of last year. In fact, Jamaica was the first of the CARICOM states to have a COVID-19 case in March. We've seen in that period tropical cyclones, severe weather events. We've had floods, a volcanic eruption, and an earthquake. And what has been interesting is that these hazards have not been occurring in a discrete way, but they've been occurring in concurrently as well as in a cascading way and having very significant impacts on our states and really derailing the development trajectories of these states. We've also seen significant social and socioeconomic implications of the hazard impacts. And in fact, the pandemic and the accompanying hazards have really radically altered the socioeconomic landscape of our region. And so it is very timely that we had the opportunity to have this conversation at this time and really to focus and zero in on the implications of this very eventful season for our CARICOM states. The third key message I want to leave with the media is that the regional platform has really reiterated the importance of partnerships. And this is referring to partnerships not just in the delivery of the platform itself, but really about the interconnected nature of all of us, the fact that we have to adopt a multi-stakeholder, all of society approach to address issues of resilience. It's also been a very strong message coming out of the need for collaboration and coordination amongst us to make sure that resources that are available are used in the most efficient manner to build resilience across the states. So with those few words, I want to again express words of congratulations to UNDRR. I want to recognize the teams at the SEDIMA Coordinating Unit as well as the team in Jamaica. And we've worked behind the scenes together over the last several months to make sure that a successful regional platform was delivered. And I want to thank the delegates, all participants who've shared their experiences, their lessons, successes, and also their knowledge towards building resilience in the Americas and the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Riley. And there's quite a bit of coordination in your representation here and the representation of your Prime Minister, Mayor Amor Motley, at the COP26 in Scotland. I believe one of the ways she started her presentation was that you cannot bring a national approach to an international problem. And that takes me to the issue you raised of partnerships, which are so important, and it does take a sort of multifaceted approach. Can I ask you, in light of you also touching on the socioeconomic landscape of the region having been altered by COVID, Mrs. Riley, I have a question from my panel of journalists joining online. Can you please tell us of what the coordinated efforts are of SEDIMA to helping the Caribbean combat COVID-19?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Shields. Well, SEDIMA has been active in supporting the region in COVID-19 since late January, early February of last year. In fact, our regional response mechanism was stood up in early February, and since then we've been working very collaboratively with our health sector partners because COVID-19 is a hazard, but it's a biological hazard. And this means that the expertise and technical guidance from the health sector is absolutely critical. So there are a number of things that we have done over the past, I guess, about 18 to 20 months or so. One is that we made significant adjustments to our regional response mechanism, which usually supports, and you probably know us well for working with hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. So we adjusted that coordination model to integrate a mechanism where we could have a direct line of communication with our health sector partners. And we've set up what we call a core coordination group on health, which was established last February. It comprises SEDIMA, CARPA, which is the Caribbean Public Health Agency. We also have the Pan American Health Organization, as you can imagine, the OECS Commission, University of the West Indies, and the CARICOM Secretariat. And we have been meeting consistently since February of 2020, discussing the dynamics of the pandemic, what was anticipated, and also putting forward positions in support of our heads of government on how we can treat with what we saw emerging and providing recommendations as necessary. We've provided position papers. We have also supported the regional solidarity, posture of solidarity with the preparation of protocols. From the SEDIMA end, we specifically delivered new protocols to our states on how we handle deployment safely in a COVID environment. And we've been able to do that successfully in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and also in Haiti. We worked and trained shelter managers across the region, looking at new protocols for how we manage our shelters safely. Another landmark component that SEDIMA has done has been with the Integrated Regional Logistics Hub. And you would remember last year that there was a significant challenge across all CARICOM states, whether full members or associate members, in obtaining personal protective equipment. And we worked very closely with the political leadership in the region who were negotiating on our behalf, and also getting donations, bulk donations for the region, as well as through procurement. And you recognize that because our markets are so small, a lot of the procurement that we had to do was very bulk procurement. So what we did was to set up an integrated regional logistics hub, which was based in Barbados. And at that hub, we received personal protective equipment from at least 3 to 4 different sources through maritime and airlift. And at the hub, we were able to break down the bulk packaging of PPEs which came in, and we separated them, repackaged them, and then facilitated the logistics of distribution to push those very critical items out to our participating states. And we did that over the period of July through to early September. And all of our states, including Jamaica, benefited from the PPE provision. So there's a lot of work that has been happening behind the scenes. We've been work with the University of the West Indies in the setup of a website where we have the up-to-date statistics on the COVID pandemic in the region. In fact, we had those work collaboratively to get financial resources to allow UWI to do that on the region's behalf. And that was one of the very early sources where countries could track what was happening across the regional space. And we continue to support. In fact, we had a coordination group meeting up to last week. We've coordinated with our partners supporting the efforts for access to vaccines, a range of areas. So we really want to thank all the partners who have worked with us, continue to work with us, all of our participating states who continue to work with us on these efforts to make sure that the critical items are reaching the participating states in a timely manner.
Thank you so much. Couple questions for you, Minister, and if you could think about these together because they sort of roll in one, the answers. How many countries participated in the ministerial meetings, and did all come to a consensus on an action plan for the region? We'll start with those two.
We had over 30 countries participating in the conference, which is a significant list of countries. And in regards to the two critical pieces of high-level discussions that took place, one surrounding the ministerial and the other one, all the countries accepted. We made adjustments to the document, and it got the consensus of all the participating countries who participated at these two high levels.
So another question for you. What's the region's action plan on disaster risk reduction? I think somebody wants to press you into telling us the conclusions in this session, or at least one of them. So what's the region's action plan on disaster risk reduction?
Well, there is no difference between the original discussions that we have had over the last 4 days. So we did not put the region, the region, let me just make the point, represented all the countries that falls within the Americas and the Caribbean. So the one document was a document that was prepared, circulated, signed off, agreed upon by all the participating countries that took part over the last 4 days. The list did indicate some of what, as a region, Caribbean, that we are doing, and we will continue to do those programs, but we will use some of what came out of this conference to put it to be a part of our parochial disaster program within the region.
Thank you, Minister. Just a couple more questions to go before we end this segment, and I'll put this one to Mami Mizuturi. What do you think are the two main messages that the population should receive on disaster risk reduction, and why?
So my first message is that as we have seen in the COVID-19 pandemic, the nature of risk that we are seeing is systemic. Now, what does it mean? It means that one, biological hazard, as Ms. Riley mentioned, quickly disrupted not only our public health, but really impacted on every aspect of our economy and our society. And this means that understanding the risk that surrounds us and being not only prepared is important, but being able to prevent means that always we need to have risk when we make any decision in the government, of course, but this is not only about the important ministry in charge of risk, but all ministries of all sectors need to understand what are the risks that surrounds us, biological hazards, but also climate risk, and incorporate it in our decision. And this extends not only to all sectors of government, but also to the private sector, to the civil society, the community leaders, ultimately every stakeholder. That is the one important message that I would mention. Second is that we do know now that disasters impact everybody, but they do not impact everybody in the same way. There are countries which are disproportionately impacted, the small island developing states, the least developed countries, and within those, there are vulnerable groups which need more assistance. However, the international community has not been yet able to deliver on the target to enhance international cooperation, enhance capacity development in these countries which are most in need. And I think the fact that this historic regional platform was hosted by a SID, a Caribbean SID, Jamaica, has been able to highlight the challenge that these countries have and also highlight the fact that the international cooperation is not enough. And we have seen this in the rollout of the vaccine as well. So this is the other strong message that I think has come out and that we need to accept as a harsh reality, but make a difference from here, from this regional platform, so that there is more solidarity and there is more action towards supporting the countries which are most in need of disaster risk reduction. That is, I think, the second important thing that I would say.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Riley. So in the same way, I beg your pardon, Mrs. Mizuturi, in the same way we say no to vaccine nationalism, we also say no to environmental nationalism because it's going to be an international problem. Final questions for the minister to end this segment, and thank you so much to my media colleagues who sent these questions in. I heard about the youth, and it's very important that the young people play a part, especially when they make submissions to the minister. So for Minister McKenzie, what was the reception of the youth submission to ministers? And are there plans to introduce disaster risk reductions in school as a subject area?
Well, the Ministerial Roundtable was elated because it is the first time that someone outside of the level of a minister or head of an entity really sat in a meeting at that level. Not only was the document presented, but the representative was invited, participated, made her contribution, and it was unanimously accepted by the Ministerial Roundtable. I also introduced a resolution which was accepted and will be signed off later on that will now make the Youth Forum an integral part of not just the regional platform, but also the global platform that was represented. In response to your question about involvement in schools, I want to make the point that here in Jamaica, we have a very robust program that involve the schools, because it is out of our school system that our junior counselors and mayors originate. So there's already a strong program used by the municipal corporations to attract young people. And I must also say that it is the ODPEM, through their communication unit, that introduced the youth ambassador, which came out of the school. So yes, in short, there is a program involving the schools, but the question of making it a part of the school curriculum, it's an engagement that we will definitely put to the Ministry of Education to see if that will become necessary or possible.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have. Thank you to the Honorable Minister, Minister of Local Government, Community Development, Desmond McKenzie. Thank you as well to Mrs. Mami Mizutori, Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction at the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR. Thank you to the Executive Director of Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, and to the scores of media representatives who have joined us on the Hop-In platform for this entire event and for the media sessions. We thank you so much for your questions. And to all of you from wherever you are coming to this beautiful location at the Jamaica Conference Center, please be safe, and we look forward to having you for the closing session so the conclusions of the meetings can be unveiled. Please take good care, and we'll see you a bit later. I'm Emily Shields.